I slammed into the floor hard enough to knock the air out of my lungs. For a second, I couldn't breathe. I just lay there staring up at rows of fluorescent lights, humming overhead, listening to someone screaming my name somewhere in the distance. Then, the screaming stopped. Not because whoever was screaming had calmed down, because they were gone. I scrambled to my feet, my flashlight spinning wildly across endless gray cubicles that stretched farther than the beam could reach. The air smelled like fresh carpet and printer toner, like an office that had been locked up on a Friday afternoon and forgotten for years. "Dylan?" I shouted. Nothing. "Chris!" Only the buzz of the lights answered. I was 17 years old, bleeding from one knee, and standing somewhere that should not have existed beneath an abandoned office building. I didn't know it then, but I had already lost one friend. The worst part, that wasn't even the first impossible thing we'd seen that night. Back then, stupid ideas were usually my specialty. If there was an abandoned house to explore, I was already climbing through a window before anyone else asked whether it was a good idea. If there was a no trespassing sign, I treated it like a personal invitation. Looking back, I don't think I was fearless. I think I was just convinced nothing truly bad could happen to me. My name's Mason. In the spring of 2003, I was a junior in high school with a driver's license that felt more important than my report card, a camcorder I brought everywhere, and 3 best friends who were just dumb enough to follow me. There was Dylan. He was loud, sarcastic, and somehow managed to make every teacher hate him within a week. Chris was the cautious one. He complained constantly, but never actually stayed behind. And Tyler. Tyler had a way of laughing that made everyone else laugh too, even if the joke wasn't funny. We'd been friends since middle school. That Friday night, we'd planned absolutely nothing, which is exactly how we ended up parked outside the old Westcott Technologies building. It sat on the edge of town behind a rusted chain-link fence. 7 stories, black windows, a faded company logo barely hanging to the brick wall. Everybody in town knew the place. Nobody knew why it had closed. Some people said the company went bankrupt. Others claimed federal investigators had emptied it overnight. Parents loved telling ghost stories about it. Teenagers loved breaking into it. I'd driven past it 100 times. That night, I finally said the words that started everything. "You guys want to go inside?" Chris groaned. "Absolutely not." Tyler grinned. "I'm in!" Dylan was already climbing over the fence before anyone finished talking. "Race, you losers!" I grabbed my camcorder. This is going to be hilarious. The front doors were chained shut, but someone had already smashed a side window months earlier. Inside, the building felt exactly like you'd expect. Dust. Broken ceiling tiles, old cubicles, stacks of yellowing paperwork scattered across the floor. Our footsteps echoed through the lobby. I swung the camcorder around dramatically. "Tonight," I announced in my best documentary voice, 4 highly trained investigators enter one of the creepiest buildings in Michigan. "I'm highly trained," Dylan said, "at getting detention." Chris shoved him. "You ever think that's why we're friends? Because I'm charming?" "No, because you're too dumb to survive without supervision." We laughed. Everything felt normal, comfortably stupid. Tyler found an old employee directory mounted on the wall. Every photograph had been removed. Only blank squares remained. That's weird. What? They took all the pictures. So? So why leave the names? I glanced over. Hundreds of names. No faces. Someone had carefully removed every single photograph. I shrugged. Probably privacy or something. None of us thought about it again. We should have. The elevators didn't work. Neither did most of the emergency lights. We wandered floor after floor, filming ourselves doing idiotic stunts. Dylan sat behind an executive desk, pretending to fire imaginary employees. Chris discovered an office chair raceway. Tyler found an ancient vending machine and jokingly tried to buy stale chips. I recorded everything. Somewhere around midnight, we reached the 6th floor. The offices became cleaner. Not renovated, just less abandoned. There was less dust. The carpet wasn't stained anymore. A coffee mug sat on one desk. I picked it up. The coffee inside looked fresh. "That's disgusting," Chris said. "Who's making coffee in here?" I laughed. Probably ghosts. Nobody laughed back. I set the mug down. It was warm, not hot. Warm. We all stood there, staring at it. Dylan finally broke the silence. "Okay, That's kind of messed up. Chris immediately offered an explanation. Homeless people. They're making coffee? They could. With what electricity? Nobody answered. We moved on. The 7th floor looked almost untouched. Computers still sat on desks. Calendars still hung on cubicle walls. A whiteboard still had meeting notes written across it. April 17th. Project deadline. Call Denver. The date was 3 years old, yet the marker looked fresh. Tyler frowned. This place feels... He stopped. What? I don't know. He rubbed the back of his neck. It feels like people just left. That sentence stayed with me. Not because of what he said, because he was right. There wasn't any vandalism up there. No graffiti, no smashed computers. Everything had simply stopped. As if the employees stood up in the middle of a workday and never came back. We eventually found the roof access door, locked. Dylan immediately started kicking it. FBI, open up! I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the camcorder. Chris rolled his eyes. You're an idiot. The sound echoed through the stairwell. Then, another bang answered from below us. We all froze, and it wasn't loud, just one heavy metallic thud, far beneath us. Dylan whispered, You hear that? Nobody moved. Another thud. Much lower. Like someone had slammed a heavy door several floors below. Chris swallowed. Someone else is here. Security? Maybe. Tyler leaned over the railing. The stairwell disappeared into darkness. I don't see anybody. We listened. Nothing. Dylan shrugged. Probably pipes. He started back down. None of us wanted to admit we'd been startled. By the time we reached the 3rd floor, we'd convinced ourselves we'd imagined it. That's when Tyler noticed something. Hold on. What? We already passed this. No, we didn't. The soda machine. We looked. Bright red. One side dented inward. A faded sticker advertising cherry cola. He was right. I remember because Mason filmed Dylan trying to shake it. Chris shook his head. There are probably soda machines on every floor. Dylan walked over. No. He pointed to the dent. Same dent. Silence settled over us. I glanced toward the stairwell. We're on the 3rd floor. Tyler nodded slowly. I know. We continued down. 2nd floor, same soda machine, same dent, same sticker. Nobody said a word. 1st floor, same machine. Now my stomach felt tight. This isn't funny, Chris muttered. It isn't me. We hurried into the lobby. The machine stood beside the front entrance. Same dent, same sticker, same scratch running diagonally across the glass. Dylan laughed nervously. Okay, what? I officially hate this building. We decided to leave. That should have been the end. We crossed the lobby toward the broken window we'd climbed through. Except the window wasn't there. The wall was solid brick. We stopped, and I looked left, then right. No, Chris frowned. What? This is where we came in. Tyler ran his hand across the wall. There was a window. There was. Dylan walked the length of the lobby. Guys. His voice had lost every bit of confidence. The front doors are gone. They hadn't simply been closed. They no longer existed. The entire front wall had become uninterrupted brick. No entrance, no glass, no chain, nothing. I felt the first genuine surge of panic. This has to be another exit. We searched. Loading docks, emergency exits, maintenance corridors. Nothing. Every door we found opened into more offices. No outside, no windows. Just endless fluorescent hallways. The strange part? The lights had turned back on. Every hallway glowed with steady white light. Nobody remembered hearing a generator start. Nobody remembered flipping a breaker. They were simply on. Chris whispered, I don't like this. Neither did I. We eventually found another stairwell we'd somehow missed earlier. A metal sign read, Basement. Finally, Dylan said, maintenance exits. He shoved the heavy door open. Cool air drifted upward. I aimed my flashlight down the concrete stairs. They looked completely ordinary. One flight landing, another flight disappearing below. Tyler sighed, let's just get out. We started down together. One flight, then another, then another. Chris stopped walking. How many basements does this place have? Nobody answered. The stairs kept going. The concrete walls slowly changed. Paint appeared, gray carpet, drop ceilings, fluorescent lights. The air became warmer, cleaner. The smell changed from mold to fresh office carpet. I looked back. The stairwell door we'd entered through was gone. Only another flight of stairs stretched upward into bright white light. A deep metallic ding echoed somewhere below us, like an elevator arriving. Then came the faintest sound. Not footsteps, not voices, typing. Hundreds of fingers rhythmically tapping keyboards, somewhere beneath us. Dylan looked at me. His grin had vanished. "Mason?" I nodded. "I hear it." We reached the bottom. A pair of polished glass doors stood waiting. Beyond them, an office floor stretched farther than I could see. Every fluorescent light was on. Every computer monitor was dark. Every desk was perfectly organized. And somewhere, far out among the endless rows of cubicles, someone laughed. Not loudly, not maniacally, just a single quiet chuckle, like an employee who'd overheard a joke. There was only one problem. None of us had spoken. Text. The laugh came from somewhere ahead of us. It wasn't eerie, it wasn't distorted. It sounded normal. That was somehow worse. We all stood frozen behind the glass doors, waiting for someone to say they were messing with us. Nobody did. Dylan finally reached for the handle. "You guys hear that?" Chris grabbed his arm. "No, we leave." "And go where?" Chris opened his mouth before realizing he didn't have an answer. The stairwell behind us was still there. At least it looked like it was. I turned to make sure. The door we'd come through had become another pair of glass office doors, leading into yet another perfectly lit hallway. My stomach dropped. "Guys!" The others followed my eyes. None of us said anything. There wasn't a stairwell anymore. There wasn't even concrete. Just office. Every direction. Tyler swallowed. "I don't understand." Nobody did. Dylan slowly pulled the glass door open. The hinges made almost no sound. Warm air rolled over us, carrying the smell of fresh paper, copier toner, brewed coffee, and something floral I couldn't place. It smelled occupied, like people had been working there minutes earlier. Our shoes sank softly into clean gray carpet. No dust, no footprints, no trash. I pointed my flashlight down one aisle. The beam barely mattered. The fluorescent lights buzzed steadily overhead, casting the same flat brightness across every identical cubicle. "This has to be underground," Chris whispered. Dylan looked around. "How?" "I don't know. We walked down maybe 6 flights." "Exactly." He turned in a slow circle. "This can't fit under the building." He was right. Even at 17, I could tell the space around us was impossible. The office upstairs had been 7 floors. This place felt limitless. Rows upon rows of cubicles disappeared into the distance until they blurred together beneath the lights. Every aisle looked exactly the same. Every desk was perfectly arranged. Computer, phone, keyboard, coffee mug, family picture. Except every photograph had the faces removed. Not torn, not scratched out. The people simply weren't there. Empty couches, empty wedding photos, empty birthday pictures. Children without parents, parents without children. Only the backgrounds remained. Tyler quietly picked one up. "What the?" He turned it toward us. A family of 4 stood in front of Disney's castle. Except there weren't 4 people. There were 4 empty silhouettes where people should have been. The castle was visible straight through them. Chris took a step backward. "No." He shook his head. "Nope." I laughed nervously. Special effects? In a framed picture? Nobody believed that. Dylan tried a desk phone. No dial tone. He hit the speaker button anyway. Silence. Then, a click. He frowned. "Hello?" Nothing. He shrugged and hung it up. 5 seconds later, every phone on the floor rang. Not 1, not 10, hundreds. The sound exploded around us from every direction. Sharp electronic ringing echoing endlessly through the cubicles. Tyler nearly screamed, "Turn them off! I can't!" The ringing stopped as suddenly as it began. The silence afterward felt deafening. Chris stared at Dylan. "Don't touch anything." I didn't know. No more. No more. We all agreed, no touching, no splitting up, no screwing around. The prank was over. For the first time that night, nobody joked. We picked a single aisle and started walking. I kept filming, mostly because holding the camera gave my hands something to do besides shake. Every now and then we'd call out, "Hello?" Nothing answered, just that endless electrical hum. After maybe 15 minutes, Tyler stopped. "You guys smell that?" We all did. Coffee, fresh coffee, strong. It drifted from somewhere nearby. Following the smell, we rounded another row of cubicles and found a break room. The coffee maker was brewing. Fresh coffee dripped into the glass pot, one slow drop at a time. Nobody stood nearby. No lights flashed, no timer counted down. It simply worked. Chris whispered, "Who's making it?" Nobody moved. The coffee maker let out one final hiss. Finished. The room remained empty. Then a chair scraped somewhere outside. Everyone jumped. Dylan whispered, "Did somebody just move?" I slowly leaned around the doorway. Nothing. Empty cubicles. Still desks. Still lights. Then I noticed something. One of the office chairs near the hallway was spinning. Slowly. Nobody had touched it. Its wheels squeaked softly across the carpet before coming to a stop. Tyler's breathing became shallow. "I don't like this. We're leaving." Chris nodded immediately. "We're leaving." "But where?" "Again." Nobody answered. We turned around. The hallway behind us was different. Not dramatically, just different. The cubicles had changed positions. The break room door we'd entered through now opened into a conference room. The aisle we'd walked down no longer existed. I laughed once, not because anything was funny, because my brain refused to accept what my eyes were seeing. "We came this way." "No," Chris said quietly. I would have remembered that copier. "What copier?" He pointed. A massive industrial copier now blocked the hallway we'd supposedly used. Tyler rubbed his eyes. "This isn't possible." The fluorescent lights flickered once, only once. When they came back, someone was standing 50 yards away, perfectly still, half hidden between two cubicles. A person, just watching us. Dylan raised his voice. "Hey!" No response. "Can you help us?" Still nothing. The figure remained motionless. I zoomed the camcorder. The image became grainy. "I can't make out the face." Tyler squinted. "Looks like a woman." Chris frowned. "No, that's definitely a guy." "What? He's wearing a tie." "There isn't a tie." Dylan shook his head. What are you talking about?" "That's an old man." We all looked at him. "What?" "The guy's old." Tyler looked confused. "No, he isn't. He's like 60. What are you seeing?" I lowered the camera. I stopped. Because I wasn't seeing any of those things. To me, it looked like someone about our age. Dark hoodie, hands in their pockets, head slightly tilted, watching. None of us were describing the same person. The figure slowly smiled. Something about it made my skin crawl. I couldn't explain why. Not yet. Chris suddenly whispered, "Guys!" "What?" "It hasn't blinked." We all stared. 5 seconds, 10, 15. Its eyes remained open. Watching, the smile never changed. Then, it stepped backward behind the cubicle wall. Gone. Dylan ran toward it. "Hey! Dylan!" He disappeared around the corner. The rest of us sprinted after him. He stood alone in another endless aisle. No one. He turned slowly. "They were just..." He pointed. "Right there." Nobody. No footsteps. No doors. Nowhere to hide. Only empty cubicles stretching forever. Chris grabbed Dylan's shoulder. We stay together. No exceptions. For the next hour, or what felt like an hour, we barely spoke. Every so often, one of us would think we heard someone walking behind us. Every time we turned, nothing. Sometimes we'd hear keyboards typing just beyond the next row. Silence the moment we looked. Once, I could have sworn I heard Tyler laughing somewhere ahead. The real Tyler was standing beside me. None of us mentioned it. Then Dylan stopped walking. "You guys hear breathing?" We listened, very faint. Somewhere nearby, slow, heavy, like someone trying very hard to stay quiet. We followed the sound, one aisle, then another. It grew louder. Chris whispered, "It's behind those cubicles." Dylan nodded. "I'll look." He stepped around the corner. There was a pause. Then Dylan laughed. "Oh, what? It's just..." His voice stopped. There was a deafening crash. Cubicle walls exploded sideways. Dylan screamed. Not a startled yell, a scream of absolute terror. We rounded the corner just in time to see something impossibly fast slam into him. For one horrifying second, I saw arms wrapped around his chest. A face smiling far too wide. Eyes that never blinked. Too many teeth. Then the thing dragged Dylan backward with impossible strength. He clawed desperately at the carpet. "Mason!" His fingernails tore grooves into the floor. We sprinted after him. The creature moved on all fours with terrifying speed, weaving through cubicles so fast it barely seemed to touch the ground. "Dylan!" He reached toward us. Then the creature rounded a corner. We followed less than 2 seconds later. The hallway was empty. No Dylan, no creature, no blood, only Dylan's flashlight, still rolling slowly across the carpet. None of us moved. Dylan's flashlight slowly circled on the carpet, its beam sweeping across the cubicle walls before finally settling on the ceiling. Chris was the first to break. "We have to go!" "What about Dylan?" Tyler shouted. "We can't leave him." "I know!" His voice cracked. "I know." I grabbed Dylan's flashlight with one hand and kept the camcorder in the other. "Dylan!" I screamed until my throat burned. Only silence answered. Then, from somewhere ahead, "Dude, over here!" We all froze. It was Dylan's voice. Exactly Dylan's voice. Relief washed over Tyler's face. "He's alive!" He started running. Chris tackled him before he'd taken 3 steps. "No!" "What are you doing?" "Think!" "That's Dylan!" Chris looked at me. "How long ago did it take him?" I swallowed. "Maybe 20 seconds. Chris slowly looked back toward the darkness. "It already has his voice." None of us spoke. Then Dylan laughed. Not beside us, ahead of us. Exactly the way he always laughed after a joke. Loud, carefree, completely normal. "Quit screwing around," the voice called. "I'm over here." Tyler's eyes filled with tears. "Mason." I didn't answer, because I honestly didn't know. What if Chris was wrong? What if Dylan had escaped? The voice came again. "You guys seriously left me?" Closer this time, much closer. Then, we heard footsteps approaching. A figure rounded the end of the aisle. It was Dylan. At least, it looked like him. Same hoodie, same shaggy brown hair, same crooked grin. He even had the scrape on his elbow from climbing the fence. Tyler immediately relaxed. "There you are." Chris grabbed his arm again. "Don't." Dylan frowned. "What?" His voice sounded hurt. "Why are you looking at me like that?" He took one slow step toward us. "I almost got killed." Another step. "You guys just left me." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. Then I noticed his eyes. They hadn't blinked once. "Dylan." He smiled a little wider. "You okay, Mason?" The smile lingered. Too long. Too wide. When he chuckled, I saw them. There weren't fangs. There weren't monstrous teeth. There were simply too many. As though someone had tried to recreate a human mouth from memory and added an extra row. Chris whispered, "Run." The thing wearing Dylan's face tilted its head. "I don't understand." It spoke softly. "We're friends." Then, almost absent-mindedly, it repeated something Dylan had said hours earlier. "FBI, open up!" The timing was wrong. The tone was wrong. Like someone quoting a joke they didn't understand. Its smile widened another fraction. Then, it dropped onto all fours. The sound it made wasn't a roar. It was the rapid tapping of fingers on a keyboard. Thousands of keys struck all at once. We turned and ran. Cubicles blurred past. Office chairs crashed behind us. Something slammed into partitions with enough force to send them tumbling like dominoes. I glanced back once. It wasn't chasing us like an animal. It moved with terrifying precision, launching from desk to desk, using filing cabinets as if it had memorized every inch of the maze. Every time it landed, it smiled and never blinked. We rounded a corner and burst through a pair of conference room doors. Chris shoved a heavy table against them. The creature hit the other side a second later. The entire room shook. Another impact. The table slid 6 inches. Another. The wood splintered. Then, nothing. Silence. We waited. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Nothing. Tyler finally whispered, "Did it leave?" Chris shook his head. "It's waiting." Sure enough, a shadow drifted slowly beneath the crack of the door, back and forth, as though it were pacing, watching, listening, waiting for us to make the first move. "I think it likes hunting," I whispered. Chris nodded. "It doesn't have to chase us. It's hurting us." The realization settled over all of us at the same time. Every hallway we'd chosen, every turn we'd made, it had allowed them. It wasn't lost. We were. Eventually, the pacing stopped. Minutes passed. No sound. Chris slowly cracked the conference room door open. Empty hallway. We slipped out. This time we stopped trying to find an exit. Instead, we focused on staying alive. The office slowly changed around us. The neat rows of cubicles gave way to executive offices, glass walls, long corridors, server rooms humming without electricity. Every monitor remained black, yet tiny green lights blinked steadily inside racks that shouldn't have had power. The deeper we went, the warmer it became, almost humid. The smell of coffee faded. Something metallic replaced it, not blood, something older, like rust after rain. Then Tyler stopped. "Do you hear music?" Very faintly. Someone was humming. A lullaby, soft, gentle, coming from behind an office door. Chris reached for the handle. Inside sat a receptionist's desk. A potted plant, a coat rack, and a little girl. She couldn't have been older than 8. She sat cross-legged on the floor with her back to us, humming to herself. My heart nearly stopped. "Hey!" She didn't answer. Tyler stepped inside. "It's okay." She slowly turned around. Her face looked perfectly normal, except she had Dylan's laugh. Not laughing, just the shape of it. The corners of her mouth curved exactly like his. She smiled. Far too wide. Chris screamed, "Tyler!" The little girl unfolded upward. Her arms stretched impossibly long. Her legs bent backward. The skin rippled. Her hair darkened. The smile remained exactly the same. Tyler stumbled backward. The creature lunged. Chris slammed the office door into it, knocking it sideways. We ran again. This time, Tyler didn't look back. None of us did. Eventually, the hallway ended. For the first time since entering the labyrinth, we found something different. A massive atrium. It stretched several stories high. Balconies overlooked the open space from every level. Hundreds of office chairs filled the floor below in perfect rows. Every chair was occupied. People, men, women, teenagers, business suits, construction workers, security guards. They sat perfectly upright, eyes open, breathing, completely still. My stomach twisted. Dylan. There he was, 3 rows from the front, sitting perfectly straight. Eyes fixed ahead, alive. His chest rose and fell. He didn't react when we shouted, didn't blink, didn't move. "Dylan!" Tyler sprinted toward him, before either of us could stop him. He reached Dylan, grabbed his shoulder. "Dude!" Dylan slowly turned his head. His expression was empty. His mouth opened. No words came out. Instead, the tapping began, not from one direction, from everywhere. Every motionless person opened their mouths. The sound of hundreds of invisible keyboards filled the atrium. Chris whispered, "Oh my God." They weren't making the noise. Something inside them was. The lights flickered once. The creature stood on the balcony above us. Only now, it no longer wore Dylan's face. It wore pieces of dozens of people. Different eyes, different hair, different clothing stitched together by impossible biology. One sleeve belonged to a business suit. The other looked like a high school hoodie. Its smile remained too wide. Its eyes remained perfectly still. Then it did something that chilled me more than anything else. It waved, with Dylan's hand. Tyler broke. "You bastard!" He charged toward the staircase. "Tyler!" The creature didn't run. It simply waited. Tyler reached the second landing. The creature met him halfway. There was a blur of movement. One scream, then silence. I caught one final glimpse of Tyler reaching toward us before he disappeared into the maze behind the creature. Gone. Just like Dylan. Chris grabbed my shirt. "We have to leave." "We can't. They're gone." His voice cracked with panic. "If we stay, we're next." For the first time all night, I agreed. We ran blindly through corridor after corridor until we found a freight elevator. The doors stood open. Inside was a single button. No numbers, just one word: lobby. Chris slammed it. The doors closed for several agonizing seconds. Nothing happened. Then the elevator jerked upward. Fast, far faster than any elevator should. The lights flickered, the tapping returned. Closer. Something scraped across the roof of the elevator. Metal groaned overhead. The smile appeared through the narrow gap where the doors met, watching us, unblinking. Then, the elevator dinged. The doors opened. We stumbled into the original lobby. Broken glass, dust, moonlight, the smashed window. It was exactly as we'd left it hours earlier. Chris didn't hesitate. He climbed through. I followed. The second my feet hit the grass outside, the building behind us went completely dark. Every light vanished. Every window became black, as though nothing had ever been inside. Police searched the building for 3 days. They found no offices beneath it. No endless labyrinth, no atrium, no rows of people. Just an ordinary abandoned office building with a flooded basement. They never found Dylan or Tyler. A month later, the city demolished the place. People assumed they had run away. Others thought Chris and I were hiding something. Eventually, everyone stopped asking. Chris moved away before graduation. We haven't spoken in years. I don't blame him. Some memories are easier to survive when no one else can confirm they happened. It's been more than 20 years. I've built a life, a family, a career. Most days, I can almost convince myself it was trauma mixed with panic. Almost. Until I catch someone holding eye contact just a little too long. Until I notice a smile that stretches just a fraction farther than it should. Until someone laughs at exactly the wrong moment. And every single time, I wait for them to blink. The thing that keeps me awake isn't wondering whether it survived. It's wondering how many times I've already walked past it.